We've left Karzuka headquarters today to go for a walk and talk about an important topic. Actually, it's the topic that is the basis for this entire channel. And also, tell you a little bit about me. Ten years ago, I began a career in automotive retail marketing after a remarkable 17-year career in broadcast news. I made that change because I needed a new challenge, because I love all things automotive, but because I also had a ridiculous notion that I could be part of changing the dealership experience for car buyers like you. A decade later, I'm sorry to report that very little has changed about the way dealerships treat their customers. Sure, some do better than others, and technology has certainly evolved, but the way that dealerships treat customers during a purchase, that's still firmly stuck in the 1950s. Let me preface this discussion by saying I'm not here to single out any one dealership or brand, and I'm certainly not here to attack salespeople. In fact, the people that I've worked with in automotive retail have been some of the most kind and caring individuals that I've met in my entire professional life. No, my problem is with how the automotive retail industry is structured as a whole. So what do I mean when I say dealerships are broken? Well, it's a lot more than high markups on vehicles and instances of bad customer service. Consider this. Two different people can go into the same dealership to buy the exact same car. The same model, the same trim, the same model year, the same color, and on the same day. And they can end up paying vastly different amounts for that identical vehicle. That is insane. Imagine walking into an Apple store to buy the latest model of iPhone, and you find out that the guy standing beside you just paid $300 less than you for the exact same phone. Either because he knows someone, or he's figured out some hack, or he has spent years figuring out the iPhone purchasing process and now knows how to beat the system. You'd lose your mind. So why do we accept this uncertainty, confusion, and yes, sometimes deception when buying a car, a much more costly and significant purchase? Sadly, everything about the dealership process is designed for one purpose: emptying your wallet. And that's far different than a business trying to earn a fair profit. I'm not being mean here. I'm telling it to you straight up, having spent a decade marketing for various automotive dealership groups. I've lived in that culture. I've sat in on the sales training that's designed to get you to purchase expensive add-on products and sew it all together in a tidy monthly payment. But let's start at the beginning. You enter the dealership, you meet a friendly salesperson, and you start haggling back and forth on the price of a vehicle. It's a battle from the start, and that's why most people go into the situation assuming this posture. And then when you're done with that, you're ushered into the finance office to listen to a lengthy presentation about extended warranties and gap insurance and wheel and tire protection. It's endless. And then you're left to wonder, what was the markup on that extended warranty? And what was the value and true cost of the rust proofing? There's nothing fun, exciting, or even efficient about any of this. So what's the solution? Oddly enough, I'm going to give credit where I never thought I would. I believe the solution is something close to the Tesla model of sales: fully transparent, fixed pricing. The pricing that appears on the manufacturer's website is identical to what you end up paying at the dealership. There's no negotiation, there's no stress, and there's no battle. The consumer then walks into the dealership knowing exactly what they're going to pay, and the dealer can't hammer an individual customer for the most gross profit possible. You see, I have no problem with the manufacturers selling their vehicles at whatever price they choose. It's their widget, and they should be allowed to sell their widget for whatever price the market as a whole will bear. But there's the line. With transparent fixed pricing, both manufacturers and dealers will find the price and the profit level at which consumers see value and then make a purchase. And most importantly, it treats every customer with the same level of respect. Dealership profits should never be made at the expense of buyers who are new to the system or who are unaware of the sales tactics that are used on the showroom. Similarly, all the products that are sold in the finance office should have fixed, fully transparent pricing that is available on both the manufacturer and dealership websites. It only serves to promote consumer confidence. Adding to that, salespeople then know exactly how much money they can expect to make based on how many vehicles they sell. That need to hammer one individual customer for a fat gross profit disappears. It lowers stress on both sides of the transaction. We're not talking about the end of capitalism here. The market still dictates the price, but every consumer should have access to the same information, the same pricing, and the same opportunities, regardless of their experience level as a car buyer. So why is this not happening now? Simply put, there's no incentive for either manufacturers or car dealerships to do so. And I'll start my explanation at the top. The manufacturers. Well, the manufacturers, they want to get paid first. In fact, they get paid the moment the vehicles arrive either at a port or in and around the time they arrive at a dealership. They are then sold to the dealership and become part of the dealership's floor plan. That's the monthly financing that the dealership pays in order to hold the vehicles in their inventory until they're ultimately sold to a consumer. At that point, a dealership is assuming all of the risk. And it's an ideal scenario for the manufacturers. Manufacturers are also happy to let dealerships bear the brunt of sales and service complaints that arise with customers. In the event that a complaint gets escalated to the mothership, the response usually comes in a tersely worded email, but the onus still falls back on the dealership to handle that communication with the customer. Now, for dealerships to introduce fixed, transparent pricing, well, that would remove all the gray area. And the gray area is where dealerships make most of their money. We're going to continue this conversation back here in the studio because that sun was starting to cook me. So what do I mean when I say dealerships work in the gray? I'm not talking about anyone breaking any laws. In fact, everyone involved is using an established system to extract the largest profit possible. You see, when a manufacturer ships a car to a dealership, the dealership pays an invoice cost for that vehicle that is fixed for the most part. There's a window of gross profit between the manufacturer's invoice cost and the advertised retail price to consumers. Sometimes consumers will pay less than the manufacturer's suggested retail price, but many times they will pay more. And where a dealer may give up some profit on the vehicle itself, that's called front-end gross. They'll then attempt to make up that loss with back-end gross. Those are the products that the finance manager tries to sell you: rust-proofing, warranties, and other coverage. The entire system is an adversarial cluster designed to tire you out, frustrate you, and as the dealer hopes, push you to make a financial decision that you were not counting on when you first walked in the door. Here's another analogy that will serve you well to remember. The dealership, it's like a casino, and the house always wins. Now, I can hear Rodney in the back row. Yeah, you, saying, I always want to be able to negotiate, because I never get a bad deal. Who are you to take that away from me? Well, there are a lot of Rodneys out there. When I was working at one dealership, I sent a quarterly newsletter to the store's entire database, more than 10,000 customers, and it included an important question. Given the choice, would you prefer it if the dealership introduced fixed, transparent, no haggle pricing on all vehicles at the best price they could offer, or would you prefer to be able to negotiate your deal? More than 80% of the responses, and there was a very high number of replies, but better than 80% said they wanted to be able to negotiate. It was in that moment that I realized that the car buying public, you and me, we are a big part of the problem, and we don't even realize it. Remember that casino analogy? The dealership always wins? A sales manager will never sign off on a deal where the store is losing money, and where Rodney managed to save a few $100s by haggling for goodness knows how long. The dealer knows that they can make up for that one skinny deal by hammering a first-time car buyer or anyone less familiar with their tactics. And guess what, Rodney? That next person who gets hammered, that person could be your son or daughter, your mother or grandfather, or your neighbor, who may all end up paying a lot more than they necessarily had to. It's time for transparency and consistency in the North American automotive retail industry. So to all the manufacturers, consumers have had enough. We don't want to play the dealership game any longer. We've had enough of payment-based selling. We've had enough of salespeople who talk out of both sides of their mouths. We don't want to deal with pressure tactics in the finance office, even if they come with a smile. All these arbitrary and opportunistic practices that ruin the entire car buying experience must end. And either you change, or we're going to force you to change. Please let me know in the comments where you stand on having the ability to negotiate at a dealership, or if you'd prefer a transparent, one price, no haggle experience. Remember, if you're not happy with the price, you always get to vote with your wallet, and you'll be contributing to a new car buying system that treats all consumers with fairness and dignity. What we need to understand as car buyers is that we are far more powerful as a buying public than we have ever been trying to go it alone in a dealership. In fact, it's Rodney's belief that he's going to beat the system that keeps the system working against consumers as a whole. Remember, head to carzuka.ca for answers to all your car buying questions and join our community forum while you're there. As always, thank you so much for coming along for the ride.